Hello and welcome back to the Dugout. This is episode 29. It's been an interesting week or so. Obviously, we haven't recorded for a couple of weeks. Just things coming up over the holiday period, very busy. We hope everyone who celebrated had a wonderful Christmas. And obviously, we wish everyone a very happy new year when it comes up. But yeah, I'm joined by Laurie Finlayson and Ethan Barlow after some interesting developments, we'll call them, in the Scottish Premiership. Laurie, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. Had a good Christmas. Now a year older as well, and yeah, just all pretty good. I mean, for my team, it's been a bit of a mixed bag that we'll get into. Although the result did go pretty well on my birthday, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, that must have been a very happy birthday for you. I certainly wasn't expecting it. I didn't quite enjoy your birthday as much. I guess we'll get onto that as well. Ethan, you must be loving life right now. We'll just come out and say it. 14 points clear. The league title is Celtics.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll say it as blunt as you, but yeah, it's a large gap for anyone to claw back. And Celtic have just been kind of getting on with work with that sort of minor blip at Tannadice. But yeah, I've had a good festive period and enjoyed the lots of football we've had in Scotland over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't seen a lot of the football. I don't know. I've been working a lot during it, and I've been trying to catch up on it. But I'm sure the people who have been able to watch it have been enjoying it. Um, there's been a lot of goals, a lot of drama. Obvious. What I think what we'll do is we'll kind of gloss over last week's, not really mention it, and then we'll talk about Thursday and Sunday. But first of all, something Hearts. We'll talk about Hearts blowing European qualification, drawing to a side that I think are currently fourth, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Moldovan League,
Yep.
Yes.
fourth in the Moldovan League, and there's no nice way to put this. It's it's embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing, and Hearts aren't looking good right now, are they, Ethan?
No, they just can't get a win. I'm sure we'll get on to it, but even at the weekend, um, I don't know how they've not come out of that game with 3 points. But yeah, it's as you said, embarrassing is the word. We sung the praise of Hearts after they got the 2 wins to open their Conference League campaign, only needing a point from 4 games. Yes, the games were maybe more difficult, but this one was the one that we sort of targeted, even at this before any fixtures were played, as a one where Hearts would need to get 3 points if they wanted to look at going through. They obviously got the point in the end, but that wasn't enough. But to not beat Petroclub at home, the worst team in the Conference League, bottom of the 36 teams, yeah, it's just really poor from Hearts, and it's the same as their domestic form. Just they're really in a state right now. Lost the derby, and it's going to get ugly, really ugly pretty soon for Neil Critchley as it did for Stephen Naismith, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the standouts over the past couple of weeks for Hearts has obviously been losing to Kilmarnock. Well, Kilmarnock had 10 men for basically 90 minutes. Obviously, they lost the derby on Thursday. Um, I think we'll just talk. We'll go through the teams. We'll do it a little bit different this week. We'll just talk about the state of Hearts. Actually, they lost the derby and they're blowing a 2-0 lead. Um, at the weekend to Ross County, who aren't a great side themselves. Although I think they picked up quite a good win on Boxing Day, obviously. But Laurie, as Ethan said, it could get ugly for Neil Critchley.
Yeah, it really could. I mean, is it too early to say that Neil Crixey's job under threat? That's now the question because he comes in, you get something of a very brief new manager bounce, Ethan. But the thing is, it doesn't last very long at all, and they're really, really wasteful. Like Hearts are so frustrating. If you're a Hearts fan, it must be infuriating because you can see they're a good side. I'm not going to come out with the too good to go down patter because Hearts have seen this film before. But the thing is, like, how can they go from being a side who, for the most part, look competitive in Europe and on paper still look like at worst, a solid top six team to a team that's relegation fodder? I mean, I'm not trying to portion blame onto the manager, but it's just something isn't right there, and no one really seems to know what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Something definitely isn't right because the quality of their squad is not a relegation battle inside, and they really are down there in the trenches based on their current results. And I think they should be starting to worry because the teams that were down there with them, you know, who everyone was kind of going, Hearts are down there, but so are Hibs and Kilmarnock. So it's just a blip for all of them, blah blah blah. And but now Hibs and Kilmarnock, granted Hibs triumphed over Kilmarnock at the weekend, they are starting to pick up some form. Hearts are struggling. They're down there with St Johnstone and Ross County. Obviously, St Johnstone are, I think they're pretty clearly at the bottom right now, but it's not. It really isn't looking good for Neil Critchley and his team. And I think, like I said, that the quality of the squad is baffling. That they're so far down. I'd love to hear a Hearts fan's perspective on it because it's just not. What needs to change? Is it the manager again? Is it, or is it too early? Or what? Honestly, have the players down tools on Critchley already after maybe they stopped playing for Naismith and it looked, Laurie, you said brief bounce, and then because they actually looked like they were playing well, creating a lot of chances. Shanklin scored a couple. Everyone was like, "Oh, they're back." Nah, doesn't look like it. That they're really struggling. And see, to be honest, if I was a Hearts fan, I think this is the period where I'd start to be getting worried that we would be, or sorry, my team would be down there struggling at the end of the season, fighting for a place to survive.
Yeah, if you look at the last, 5 games they've played, obviously they had that Petra Cup game, and then they've played 4 teams in the bottom 6 of the Scottish Premiership, and they've got 5 points from those sort of 15 points with the 4 league games and the Conference League game. I mean, you're looking to be picking up at least sort of 10 points maybe from that. Especially if your Hearts, it's just not good enough, and it won't be stood for. From the Jambos fans. And I think Critchley could go if he doesn't turn it around soon. Shankland, as you mentioned, looked like he had got his sort of mojo back. Hasn't turned out that way. I think Blair Spittle's been pretty good for Hearts. As he kind of started the season slow, he seems to have picked it up a bit. But yeah, they're not a great team at the moment. They're not have any fluidity out throughout the team. And losing to Hibs won't help that. I think it's the first time Hibs have won at Tynecastle since Boxing Day 2019. So exactly 5 years on. And maybe for Hearts, it will be like David Gray, where you give him that chance, you keep with him, you keep backing him, and it turns around like Hibs have done. But I don't see any signs of that right now for Hearts.
Yeah, just the well, yeah, I don't think we can say much more on Hearts, but we'll go to the. I think we'll go to the side that actually beat them on Boxing Day, and the magnitude of that win. That's an incredible stat you just read out there, Ethan. I think that shows you where both the teams are going, and this is the one for me. It's kind of feel good, club legend. Everyone was kind of going on, "Oh, leave before you tarnish your legacy." But they've stuck with him. We were all baffled that they've stuck with him, but they seem to have really turned it around. And um, yeah, Hibs. I wouldn't say they're the most likable club, but I would just think there's a feel good factor around their story this season, Laurie.
Yeah, I think that is fair to say. I don't know whether the feel good factor yet, I would say personally. I mean, but I feel like there's potential to be one. If David Gray used a club legend or Sir David Gray, as the high bees like to call him, obviously for that Scottish Cup win, if he can keep this up and get them to a decent league position, there will certainly be, some sort of positivity around that. Although as you say, we're as surprised as anyone that he's managed to turn it around. I mean, there was obviously, a lot of speculation surrounding his future, and then it was very much surprising that Hibs kept him on because Hibs actually put out a statement kind of supporting David Gray. And normally when a club does that, that normally means they're literally about to sack you or don't win this next game and you're out type thing. But I mean, fair play to Hibs for not being overly like trigger happy as they have been in the past, with the likes of, well, Jack Ross a few years ago, Nick Montgomery more recently. And I mean, we can't really include Lee Johnson in there because that was just a car crash. But like
Yeah.
Hibs are one of these teams that needs stability, and I'm not got that yet. But could David Gray be that guy? I wouldn't have said that a few months ago, but you never know.
Yeah, I think so ever since that draw against Aberdeen at home, when I don't think anyone sort of gave them a chance. Aberdeen were just kind of starting to go into their tricky spell. Then they get that 3-0 win at Fir Park, which raises a few eyebrows. And then even though they lost 3-0 at Celtic Park, I thought they were brilliant on the day, and the result never really showed the sort of full outcome of the game. And the amount of chances Hibs had, they should have scored at least two. And then they get the 4 wins on the bounce with some impressive performances in there. Martin Boyle has been really good, especially against Aberdeen. Eli Ewan's kicked on to a game. And I think someone who's really been brilliant, Nicky Cadden. I think he's got 7 goal involvements in his last 9 games. So yeah, the Hibs have they always had a good group of players, but they're starting to sort of put it together now under David Gray, and yeah, they're definitely one of the most on-form teams in the league.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Nicky Cadden, he seems like from what I've seen, he's coming out as a leader on that team as well. He's leading by example, but just the way he carries himself on the pitch and his attitude, apart from launching it off the linesman at at the derby and then not apologising, which was a bit strange that I thought. But yeah, but just the rest of he looks like he's a real leader, and he could be he could be one of the catalysts for their success. And top six is a ways away, but if they keep at it, you never know.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're 3 points outside behind Motherwell. Motherwell have got a game in hand, but they're also 3 points behind St Mirren, who haven't got a game in hand. So you would fancy them to sort of push. Obviously, St Mirren and Motherwell both on quite decent form as well, and then the teams above that, apart from maybe Aberdeen, especially maybe Rangers. Most of the teams are on pretty good form as well. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one for Hibs, but I think they can get top 6. And I wouldn't have said that a few months ago. Yeah, it's credit to David Gray and the players that they've been able to turn it around. And Hearts fans will hope for the same for their club.
Definitely. Laurie, we'll come on to your club, Kilmarnock. Obviously, they did lose to Hibs at the weekend, but before that, a thumping 4-0 victory over Aberdeen, who are winless now in their last 8. And, this, to me, obviously, you've had quite a good month of December. This, to me, felt like a real kind of statement performance and one that no one was expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. Statement performance is exactly what it is. All season, Derek McInnes has been sounding like a broken record, calling for a 90-minute performance come from Kelly. And then if you ever have watched Mark, even if it's on the TV, you'll notice we're one of these teams that can be quite streaky and will, play for 45 minutes, play for half an hour. But we managed to sustain, well, a 90-minute performance where it was almost as close to perfection as you're going to get. And I mean, it's not like us to actually hammer a team. I mean, 4-0 or scores like that for Kilmarnock, at least on the winning side, are unheard of as well. So it was literally the stuff of dreamed. And as much as Aberdeen, as we've already alluded to, have had a major wobble of late. I mean, no wins in eight, or as it was at the time, no wins in seven. But it was still one of these games that you come into with a seed of doubt. You think Aberdeen are one of these teams that can come to Rugby Park and win. For many a year, Aberdeen were like Kelly's major bogey team, but since Derek McInnes had obviously came in to the dugout at Rugby Park rather than Pataudry, he has um, he has won every meeting between Kilmarnock and Aberdeen in Ayrshire, I think. So
Wow.
he has got his old team's number, at least at home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Sorry, I was just to say
that.
that's brilliant. I didn't. I knew you were decent against them, but I didn't know that you were that good against them, especially at Rugby Park. And you know, for Kilmarnock, much like Hibs and Hearts, it's been a tough start to the season. But I'd ban them, maybe not as good, but I'd ban them in with Hibs and go, it could be looking up. However, another red card at the weekend uh, for Kilmarnock. Is that 7th of the season?
Worse, it's the eighth of the season now.
8th red card for Kilmarnock this season. This time, Danny Armstrong getting in the mix, and Laurie. I'll come to you after, Ethan, because I could see you're itching to say something, but I'll just come to Laurie. What, honestly, we've covered it so many times, but what is going on?
I really don't know. I mean, the one from the weekend game is debatable. I mean, the yellow card that he gets for kind of swinging an arm, fine. The second yellow, it's debatable as to whether it was a foul. He I would say it was a foul. Whether it was a second booking is another thing. But of course, it brings in the whole debate, which obviously involves like IFAB, not even SFA and SPFL, around should VAR be allowed to look at second bookable offences. Personally, I think it should. Derek McInnes certainly agrees as well. He's been on record already. If you've heard any of his post-match comments, he, well, had a little bit of a rant at a reporter and saying like, how stupid is that that VAR can't look at it? And I mean, I kind of think the second bookable offence was debatable. Admittedly, I wasn't at the game. Many Kelly fans were. As for every supporter at Easter Road on Sunday, admission was a fiver, but due to radio commitments, couldn't get myself to leave. But it's very much in the debatable category. Ethan, you're it and say something.
Yeah, I just when I seen it, I just couldn't believe it. Another red card. I think both yellows are. I think the first one is kind of silly, a little silly. The second one,
Mhm.
a little silly to go in like that. Maybe when you're on a booking, I don't think Armstrong's ever going to get the ball. I understand he's trying to put pressure on the Hibs player in front of their goal, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's just it is a really a big problem for Kilmarnock. You think they maybe don't get a red card there, they maybe get themselves back into the game and maybe sneak a point, which would be a good one at Easter Road. But yeah, just to speak on Kilmarnock's win at home to Aberdeen, as you said, Laurie, a real statement victory. I think we were speaking about it before, maybe the first time Kilmarnock have won in the league by 4 goals since 2020. So yeah, and I thought Fraser Murray was the standout. I thought he was brilliant,
Yeah.
especially his pass for the Ennis Cameron goal was delightful. But yeah, Kilmarnock, they seem to be back in amongst it, battling. Um, just maybe need to reduce the amount of red cards they get, and they can maybe, like Hibs, as Alex said, make a push for Europe. But yeah, I think that's 7 points now. Kilmarnock are clear of the bottom, so that's really
Yeah.
good from when a few weeks ago I think they could have been bottom if results had went a certain way. But yeah, Kilmarnock on the up.
Moving on to Kelly's victims after Thursday, we'll talk about Aberdeen. Winless in their last 8 now, and it's been a really, really poor drop off from the Dons. I think we expected them to drop off, but not this drastically and quickly. Ethan, Jimmy Tilleen it's really not going well for him. And now he's gone from people going, "Oh, he's a great manager," to some people questioning whether he should still be there. I think that's maybe a bit extreme right now, but I have seen things online about it and Twitter and stuff. So it's quite bad for Aberdeen, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in terms of talks of any of the fans wanting them sort of sacked, I think it's a wee bit entitled. Is a word that I'm going to use because I think if you look at the table, would Aberdeen have taken being just a few points behind? Would Aberdeen have taken just being a few points behind Rangers at this stage of the season? Yes, they definitely would have. Been in third place, in a great position to still get top six and that third place, which I'm not sure what the European implications are for next season, as I know we've lost our automatic Champions League spot. But yeah, it's not looking good now. No winning, eight, as you said. One win since that thrashing at Hampden in the Premier Sports Cup semi-final at the hands of Celtic. Then they went on to beat Dundee 4-1 the next game, and you think, oh, Aberdeen have bounced back. They're still here and a force to be reckoned with. But since then, it's been a car crash. It's been really, really bad. But I think the Aberdeen fans just need to remember where Jimmy Tillings took them so far, where they are in the league. And they can still turn this around. They still have a good squad, one of the best in the league. But yeah, they're really not at the races at the moment. And yeah, it's a difficult period for them.
Yeah, obviously they lost 4-0 to Kilmarnock and then lost 1-0 in the 94th minute to Dundee United. As Laurie helpfully informed me last night, that the new firm apparently. So I've never heard that before ever until Laurie told me. But
I think it,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it was. I think it was around when the sort of Ronnie Dyler Celtic days. I think, or was it even before that?
I think it originated before that. I think it was maybe something that originated from like when both Dundee United and Aberdeen were seen as, like top sides, maybe like in the 1980s when you've got Sir Alex Ferguson in the Aberdeen dugout, when you've got a Dundee United team who I think even still to this day have a unbeaten record against Barcelona, that sort of caliber of team. But I mean, New Firm was probably more used during that kind of Ronnie Dyler Celtic era because obviously, what was traditionally the old firm obviously wasn't played. But there you go. So there you are. So hailing from the 1980s, there you go. The new firm is the term used. Hailing from the 1980s, I was right, to describe the rivalry between Scottish football clubs Aberdeen and Dundee United. There you go. So so that's that. Although it doesn't sound like it was the greatest of games. But Aberdeen, back to them, and even you make the point about entitlement, and you could argue that maybe Dundee United to an extent are the same, but you see it more with Aberdeen because their fans are always kind of wanting to hark back to those glory days of the 1980s and what Cup Winners' Cup and all this and game day against Real Madrid and stuff like that. But that's not the days where Aberdeen are now. Granted, the first maybe I'm not even quite first half of the season, but the first kind of portion of this season, the Dons fans were given a real reminder of that with how Jimmy Green started. But I think maybe some fans in the Northeast need it's a bit strong to call it a reality check, but like this is still a pretty decent season, and I think they will, you know, bounce back and will probably finish in third. But like it's just it has been really quite concerning how they've dropped off, however, and I've got to say, I mentioned it a bit earlier on, I was still a little bit fearful of them coming to Rugby Park, but they were absolutely horrendous on Thursday. They just couldn't even like they were so they were so open, it felt like. But I don't know. something just has kind of fell off and at Pittodrie.
Yeah, just to add another point. Do you think that there's any contribution to just the league? Maybe some teams getting better as the seasons went on. You look at maybe Kilmarnock, your Hibs, and even St Mirren. I know they lost at the weekend, or not the weekend. Yeah, the weekend. Um, but they strung a good few results before that. That might be the league's got a bit more competitive across the board than maybe it was at the start. With Aberdeen just winning after winning after winning. But yeah, there's I don't really see how it's happened. It's a difficult one to get your head around looking at the opening quarter of the season, we'll call it. But yeah, I still think Aberdeen. I agree with you, Laurie. I still think Aberdeen will turn it around, and I still think they're favourites for third place, even though Dundee United are hot on their tails.
Yeah. I mean, Dundee United, just for a minute, to be fair on them, I mean, we'll go on here a bit, Alex, I'm sure, but like, they have had an incredible season, this time around, all coming, up from back from the championship, and let's give Jim Goodwin a bit of credit, because of course he was seen a bit of a laughing stock, amongst the Aberdeen support not so long ago. Gets the Dundee United job when at a poison chalice. Officially speaking, takes them down, but in reality, it wasn't him. And well, he's bounced back in the best possible way, recruited really well, and they've taken everyone by surprise. They're a big club that we didn't expect were going to be in relegation bother if you cast our minds back to the early season previews. But I don't think anyone was expecting them to do half as well as they've done.
No, definitely not. And yeah, we can debate over the legitimacy of the new farm derby, but the Dundee United fans certainly enjoyed that late winner. But yeah,
Yeah, we'll just talk about Dundee United. Laurie, all the things you said are spot on. They've definitely exceeded my expectations for them. I think, like you mentioned, I didn't think they would be in that relegation scrap at all, because I don't know, maybe it is the fact that they're a big club, the fact that they've got a manager like Jim Goodwin, who before Aberdeen had quite a good reputation with St Mirren. But yeah, they're a good side, and they like you said, they've recruited really well. They've got some really fantastic players in there, like Adabayega and Lucas Stevenson. Will Ferry's a great player. Obviously, Ryan Strain's been a good addition, uh, and it's you get. I'm not sure how well they're doing anymore, but at the start of the season, you had the likes of Trapanovsky and Babunski, and they're playing really well. Sam Dolby, excellent. So it's a really really good side. They've got a bit of depth, and they have taken the league by surprise. But it is no surprise that they're up there by looking at the way they've played. If you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. I think we all had Dundee United sort of bottom half, but none of us had them really near those relegation spots as Laurie mentioned. But yeah, they've been brilliant this season. I think they've only lost 5 games, which is really impressive. 3 of them coming against Motherwell, strangely enough. I think the other ones were against Rangers and Aberdeen, and they're undefeated against Celtic, which is pretty impressive. That was a impressive result at Tannadice to hold Celtic to the first game where Celtic haven't scored domestically this season, and then they back it up with another 2 good wins away in Perth and then at home to Aberdeen. And I think they'll push Aberdeen for that third place, but no one would have backed them for that at the start of the season. And I agree with your guys' points on the players. They've got some really good players. I mean, Sam Dalby. I think a lot of the Dundee United fans want him on a permanent. Whether they'll be able to get that across the line might be a
I
wee bit difficult. But
think maybe they would be able to, because if you look at Wrexham's striking options, they've got Paul Mullen, Ollie Palmer, Stephen Fletcher's still there, obviously former Dundee United himself. And I saw a couple of days ago they were linked with Patrick Bamford. So when you can bring guys like that into your club. I think, unfortunately for Sam Dolby, a great player he is, there might not be a place for him at Wrexham. But fortunately for Dundee United and Sam Dolby, if they can, negotiate a reasonable fee, they could get him in. And
Yeah.
I think that would be good because we need to keep good players that we in the league. It just adds something.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'd be a massive signing for Dundee United. Kind of came out of nowhere at the start of the season, but he's been brilliant. Obviously, top scorer in the league with 9 goals. You wouldn't put it past him to stay in that, stay on that at the top of the mantle.
Absolutely not. I mean, sometimes you do question, like, when these players first sign, you're like, no disrespect here, but why are we signing players, or why are they signing players on loan from likes of Wrexham, or in the past, like Kelly signed, it was Conor McElhenney, Steve Clark signed them on loan from Fleetwood, and you're like, why are you signing players on loan from Wrexham and Fleetwood, or teams like that? But then when they turn out to be decent, you don't really care where they're on loan from.
Yeah, definitely. And they've recruited brilliantly, Dundee United. I think Alex mentioned some of the North Macedonian boys, and some of the options they've got in wide areas have been brilliant. And they've got the third best defence in the league behind Celtic and Rangers, so I think that's probably been the catapult for how they're doing so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, who shall we talk about next? Do you want to talk about St Mirren?
Yeah,
Let, let's do it.
So, St Mirren with a massive win on Thursday over Rangers. Rangers were so poor. St Mirren were really good. I thought the way they set up, um, they were really compact. They were aggressive. They weren't just sitting everyone behind the ball. They used the pitch to their advantage. Rangers couldn't play through them, and that classic long ball to Olasanya was causing a lot of problems. And it was a long ball that ended up going in favour of St Mirren, a penalty for them. Ocean Smith put it away. Rangers equalised in the second half. They were looking really good. And then what's his Kellen Boyd Munce with an excellent finish to put it away and put Rangers away. And that's a massive win for St Mirren. Then they follow up by losing to Dundee. So interesting, but they're definitely well in that top six. I'd say definitely like they're 4 points behind Dundee United, although Dundee United have a game in hand on them. Motherwell are just behind them, but Motherwell have a game in hand as well. They're on the same points, but St Mirren have a better goal difference. But it's not a big gap for them to be fighting in. I think they deserve to be there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, as I said, I thought St Mirren were one of the sort of teams that have not turned, well, maybe turned a corner because they started the season, certainly domestically, um, along with Kilmarnock possibly, that sort of Europe, struggling to balance Europe and domestic football. And I know I always refer to it, but since Stephen Robinson signed that new contract, it's done wonders for St Mirren. They obviously get those 3 wins, but all with late winners. Late winner to win 3-2 at St Johnstone, then they win 2-1 at Ross County with another late winner, and then they obviously get that brilliant win at home to Rangers. And then, as you said, they follow up with that loss to Dundee, which I didn't see coming. It looked like St Mirren were on a sort of upwards trajectory. Dundee, maybe the opposite. But I'm sure we'll get on to Dundee. But yeah, St Mirren looked good. Olasanya was a threat as always. He's one of the top scorers in the league. Yeah, I think St Mirren, as you said, Alex, will be right in there in that top six battle.
Yeah, definitely. Laurie, obviously your club isn't up there this season, but you know, if, so far. But if you continue your good form, um, it could be somewhere you want to challenge for, and I think St Mirren are definitely a side that you would need to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I still see Kilmarnock and St Mirren as being quite comparable. I mean, even you made the comparison around the start of the season in the European hangover, and I suppose, well, last season, I mean, it was really a race between ourselves and the buddies, and I still kind of see it the same way. Like we're very similar. It's in the way that we are very similar side of the club as well, and stature of club, and obviously, well, just after the new year and what the 2nd of January, of course, everything will be overshadowed by the old firm. But Kilmarnock and St Mirren actively play each other at Rugby Park, and what's going to be an absolute massive game. It kind of feels like if St Mirren win that, it's a real kind of statement with regards to top six. And if Kelly were to somehow come out on top on that, which I actually think we could, you know, as a reminder to the rest of the league that we're not going anywhere. We're kind of looking up the way as opposed to behind us. And like that's going to be a huge game and the kind of top six battle, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you made the comparison, or added to the point I made about the comparison between Kelly and St Mirren. I think it's the same with the managers as well. I think there's been shouts from both sets of supporters for the manager maybe to go earlier in the season, that he's not the right man to take the clubs forward. But I think both clubs have got great managers there that are maybe the best they can get. I would even say. And I think both clubs punching above their weight in recent years, and both will be hoping to do the same this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll move on to St Mirren's Boxing Day victims. Um, Rangers, who obviously were defeated 2-1 by the Buddies and then drew 2 each with Motherwell after going 2-0 down. And, that's the league over. I kind of thought it was over before, but now I think it's just and not impossible, but it's you know what I'm trying to say. It's just not plausible. I'll go with that. And yeah, what is he doing? What? Like, why is this? Why is he changing it up so much? I
I
get
don't know.
rest. I get rest in a couple of players, maybe I don't know, but the Motherwell one was mental. Kieran Dowell, Dessers, Oscar Cortez started and he hadn't kicked a ball in months because of his injuries. And then you see what we go to now down, but you see what happens when we make the changes. And Agaman's he's one of the actual like shining lights for Rangers this season. He's a top player, and two good goals from him. Danilo's decent. He scored against Marin, obviously, but the rest, the defence is in shambles. Obviously, we've had injuries. Robin Proper is a Dutch Ben Davies. Um, Honestly, he's a Dutch Ben Davies. Dujon Sterling's not a centre back. Jack Butland, he's been okay this season, nowhere near as good as last season. And he was obviously, he was fouled uh, clearly by Tony Watt. Maybe Ethan will have something to say about that, but I thought it was a clear foul on him. But he's not been great, and he doesn't look so confident in the air, catching balls and coming for them and stuff. So coming for crosses and that. So it's a bit shaky, and it's so frustrating because you think you've turned a corner. You're playing well. Even in the 1-0 against Dundee, we should have won 4 or 5. We're excellent. Hit the bar 4 times. And then we'd go and turn that performance against St Mirren, and then he messes with the team, and we go 2-0 down to Motherwell. We'll have to claw back into it, and we don't win. And now it's 14 points. And even if Rangers go out there and give 110% and beat Celtic on Thursday, ultimately I think it won't be meaningless in terms of like bragging rights and pride and all that, but it'll be meaningless in the landscape of the league. And yeah, Ethan, what's happening at Rangers? Does Philippe Clement lost the plot?
Yeah, I was one of the ones who sang his praises, like most people, after the sort of run he went on. Obviously, got those 4 league wins over sort of lower half teams, but it's still they were playing well. The performances were there, like you said, against Dundee, despite it being just the one. The performance was there. Obviously, they played well in the cup final and just lost out by um, a minor, well, one kick of the ball in the penalty shootout. But I thought Rangers were impressive in that game. I thought Clement had sort of got grip with the players and knew what he wanted to do with the team going forward. And then going to Paisley, I heard on the car coming in the car home from the Celtic match, I heard that he was benching Nicholas Raskin because he was on a yellow card away from being suspended for the game at Ibrox against Celtic. And I just don't think Rangers are in the position to take sort of Raskin out of the team for that game. I think that's one of the decisions that baffles me from Clement. I think you've got to face what's in front of you. St Mirren are not a team where you're going to just roll up and beat them. And yeah, and then the Motherwell one, as you said, even more baffling. 7 changes. Keenan Dowell and Oscar Cortez. It's like he's picked names out of a hat for that starting 11. I really don't understand what he's trying to do. I think he's spoke about sports science and whatever, but I think, from what I can see, I think it might have just been looking for a reaction from his squad after the disappointing result in Paisley. But ultimately, the blame falls on him if he's made that many changes and they've not got the win. As you said, Hamza Gamani and looked good as he has done most of the time in a Rangers shirt. The one shining light. I'd add Vlacha Cherny to that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what Clement's doing. He's dropped 5 points in 2 games because he's prioritising the Celtic game where he's got to just deal with what's in front of him. If he had won those 2 games, then it would be, even if he lost to Celtic, he would be in a better position in the league. But that's what he's done, and now he better win against Celtic. Otherwise, there will be even more scrutiny of him. But I really can't see Rangers winning that match.
I think if he loses against Celtic, he has to go. Obviously, it's not an ideal.
On yeah,
Sorry, it's
on,
not an ideal thing to bring in a new manager right before the January window. Well, during the January window, it'll be. But if he loses against Celtic, it will be 17 points. And I've run out of patience. I've been very patient with him on this podcast and in real life. You guys will know. But I'm running out of patience. And if we lose against Celtic, I'll be fed up with him and I want him gone because I think if I think he's proven a couple of times that he's maybe out of his depth. And I thought, oh, these are just hiccups. But no, I think he's out. He definitely is out of his depth at Rangers, and he's struggling. And it'll be the best if he loses. It'll be the best thing for the club and the best thing for him if he goes and we look somewhere else.
yeah, maybe because I mean, you say it yourself about the changes that were made. I mean, like normally when a manager kind of picks name out of a hat or kind of opens up a bit of a tombola with team selection, it's that's when a manager's not sure of themselves or not sure of their best team. And Alex, you say if he loses the Old Firm, he has to go, right? Do you think he would have the almost, for want of a better word, class about him to walk, or do you think he would
No,
get the payout?
he strikes me as the type of guy that will take everyone down with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that as well. I think,
Including his sports scientist.
Yeah,
yeah, but I think uh, I know if you even look at Celtic, they wouldn't rotate even if Celtic rotated 7 players in a game. Celtic obviously have a better squad than Rangers. We all know that. But even if Celtic rotated 7 players for a game, it would be flat and they would be lucky to win most of the time. It's not something you do, especially not something you do when you've lost the previous game and you're not in a sort of a great run. Obviously, you got the wins, but still, Rangers fans weren't at all happy with where they were, obviously. But yeah, it baffles me. I don't understand why you couldn't have rotated at home to Dundee. That's the obvious easiest fixture out the three. I know it maybe doesn't pan out that way, but I don't think you can go to Motherwell and St Mirren. I know St Mirren they only rotated Raskin out, but the point stands for Motherwell. I don't think you can go to Motherwell and expect to win if you're rotating that many players with this Rangers squad.
See what you said though, he only rotated Raskin. I think that's an insane change because he's clearly one of the best midfielders. Like, granted, probably all, like maybe all of the Celtic ones are better right now, but he's one of the best midfielders in the league, and he's maybe it's a little bit of bias. He's the only one out the Rangers midfield I would maybe think had a chance of getting into the Celtic midfield. I just think he's that good, and
Yeah,
I think that's insane. You can see the difference when he came on. Like, we were moving the ball so much quicker, and it's just unfortunate that we had to come back from a goal down, and then we looked like we were coming back into it, but we couldn't finish our chances, and then St Mirren came back into it for the last 10 minutes or so, and they got that really good goal. I think it's stupid because Raskin, you know what, I'll say it. I think joint with Václav Černý, he's our best player. The two of them are our best players. Agaman's really good. I wouldn't say he's quite there yet. Danilo's really good. You know, I don't know what. I didn't see any news. Did you guys see if Yanis Hadji got injured because he wasn't in the
it was
squad?
ill, apparently.
He was ill,
Illness, apparently. That's what
right?
Clement said. Whether he actually has ill or he's just chose to not have him in the squad, we don't know based off his decision making, but that's what he said anyway.
Okay, so yeah, Hadji's one as well that I think's okay. Barami's shown sparks. I think we've got players there who are good players, and they've shown they can be good players. They went toe to toe with Tottenham. They went toe to toe with Celtic in the cup final.
But
But
yeah, that's what makes it frustrating. There's the makings of a good squad there. Of course there is. It's who is the right person to piece it together, and it doesn't seem to be Philippe Clement at this point.
well,
I
we
mean,
thought it. We
he's
thought it was after all of that, and then he goes and smashed it all down. Is it blooming playing Jenga, and he's just decided to take a baseball bat to it or something?
and just totally whack it, and I don't know. But what you say about potentially getting a new manager in, it's really awkward because obviously, as you say, January window and whatever. But you've got to, if you're going to do it, you've got to at least do it during the window so they at least have a fighting chance of getting anyone in. And also on that note, I don't know how much maybe Rangers would be relying on loan market as well. I don't know what the situation is financially. I know there was also a lot of talk in the summer, and obviously at that point, Ibrox was a bit of a building site, but it just seems as if there'll be some sort of rebuild happening again sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm just going to say my probably final point on Rangers. I think to rotate that many players is just stupidity. I don't even know what you would call it. Beyond that,
Insanity,
yeah,
lunacy.
insanity. Yeah,
Yeah,
you look at the league table. Rangers are a few points ahead of the sort of Aberdeen and then Dundee United. It's not a case of Rangers' second team is going to go out and beat St Mirren away, beat Motherwell away. Obviously, as I said, it was only Raskin. He relied on Connor Barron to bring him the goods. He didn't. That falls on Clement. It's back-to-back games where he's made stupid decisions and it ultimately falls on him. And that's why he probably should lose his job, unless he maybe beats Celtic and brings a glimmer of hope
In
back amongst the Ibrox faithful.
convincing fashion.
Yeah,
I think it needs to be 2-0 or more. As
yeah,
like, I'm not saying if he beats Celtic he'll lose his job, but if he draws with them or scrapes past them, Obviously people will be happy if they beat them, but at the end of the day, we do all of it. It's about the bragging rights, but Ethan,
Yeah.
if we were to beat Celtic on Thursday, and I turn around and go ha ha, and you turn around and go, who
Yeah,
cares?
yeah. The only
Yeah.
is just pride. It's stopping Celtic. It would stop Celtic being invincible. That's probably what Rangers are aiming for now. That's the kind of level we've got to. And I think the Rangers defence, if I was thinking from a Rangers point of view, would worry me. I think the injuries, James Tavernier, I don't think he's played particularly badly over this period.
No, it's
The
weird.
left back,
Really, the scapegoat.
yes, the left back situation, I don't think Clement knows who he prefers between JFD and Yilmaz. Um, as you said, Robin Proper looks like a complete bomb scare. And Dujon Sterling's not a natural central defender. They're going to miss John Suter and Liam Balogun. And Jack Butland hasn't covered himself in glory, especially in that Motherwell game. Obviously, he gets the decisions on both goals, which maybe are the right decisions. I think it's a soft foul on Watt, but it probably is a foul. And then the offside one, he doesn't cover himself in glory either. So yeah, I wouldn't be confident in that defence.
No.
But I think Rangers can still hurt Celtic. So yeah, it'll be an entertaining game as it always is. But yeah, you've got to have Celtic as favourites going into that one.
Yeah, definitely, I would. So, do you want to? We'll talk about Motherwell first, and then we'll talk about Celtic. Motherwell obviously drew with Rangers, which if you'd told them beforehand, they'd probably bit your hand off, but throwing away a 2-0 lead, not great from that perspective. Uh, what was their Boxing Day result?
Uh,
What?
they
Yeah,
get,
they lost 4-0 to Celtic, didn't they?
They lost 4-0 Celtic, yeah.
So yeah, not bad, I'd say. They got a point out of
Mm.
the two the two old firm sides. Obviously, there was maybe some controversy on Thursday. Um, I think Celtic got a penalty that is never a penalty in a million years.
Yeah.
I know that maybe sounds like I'm salty and biased, but never a penalty in a million years.
no, I don't think it is. I think I'd have to agree. It's very soft. I think at the time at the game watching it, I thought Yang beats the goalkeeper at the ball. Oxborough takes him out, clear penalty. Seeing it back, there's very little contact. But there was a few penalty shouts for both teams. I think Motherwell had a couple, a handball on Carter Vickers, which I don't think was a penalty, although I've not seen it back. There was one where Maeda got a boot towards the face, which might have been a penalty again. Didn't really think much of it. And then there was one that the Bernardo cross that might have hit the hand of Kofi Balmer. But again, it was difficult to see. But yeah, it was definitely a soft penalty, you could say that, and unfortunate for Motherwell because they had held Celtic out for the whole of that first half, where Celtic were rather pedestrian without Motherwell. I don't think Motherwell even had a shot in the first half, but they defended well against Celtic. But yeah, Celtic broke their duck of 3 draws in a row before that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Motherwell are one that have kind of dropped off a little bit. They're sixth now, which is kind of strange. But I feel like they've still got quality in that side, and um, they could still turn it around and make a goal for the top four because they're not that far away. So it is so tight from, I'd say, fourth to Hibs and seventh. Um,
Yeah.
and even still, if you add in the likes of Kilmarnock, they're on 20, 21 points, Laurie, and you mentioned you're playing St Mirren, they're on 27. If you beat St Mirren, you're right up at their backs. So,
6 pointer.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a 6 pointer. But back on to Motherwell for a wee second. They are they're a very strange side. They always happen when these teams they'll go through unbelievable runs where you go, they're brilliant. And then they go through this like month-long spell where they can't hit a barn door. Although I will say they've got some good players going forward. I mean, Mas Mariste, that's some find from Leicester City, I've got to say. I mean,
Yeah,
he
he's a good
he
player.
yeah, caused Rangers some real bother at the weekend, and he caused Kilmarnock a lot of bother just before Christmas as well. But inexplicably, Stuart Kettlewell had him on the bench. Had he started, Motherwell were winning that game.
Yeah, I think Maswinisi, he's not been maybe as consistent as Motherwell fans would like, but that was an absolutely really brilliant goal he scored against Rangers. The touch and the finish, and the Australian striker Stamatolopoulos. I'm going to go
Well
for.
done.
Um, he's come on to a bit of a game as well. He didn't start at Celtic Park, which I thought was a bit strange, but Kettlewell might have just been putting Tony Watt in there for the more sort of direct approach, you could call it. But yeah, Lennon Miller as well, and then Andy Halliday. He did start against Rangers, but he didn't start against Celtic. I think he was carrying a knock. But yeah, we've got some good players in there, and they'll be in the. I know I've said this for a lot of the teams, but they'll still be in that fight for top six. It's going to be interesting because out with maybe the top four, as Alex said, it's a bit of a battle in there.
All right, so we'll move on to Celtic. Obviously, back to back 4-0 wins for them, top of the table, 14 points. I don't think there's really a lot to buy 14 points. They don't have 14 points because they would be bottom uh, with St Johnstone, who are on 14. But that's kind of mad. Celtic are leading the table by 14, and St Johnstone have 14. But yeah, I don't think there's really a lot to say about Celtic. Ethan, business as usual.
Yeah, but that's exactly how I would put it. They obviously had that little blip at Tannadice where they couldn't quite score. They didn't really look great. But Dundee United never looked like scoring either, and I think that's where it's going to be so difficult for one of these teams in the league to triumph Celtic and stop them going invincible. Yeah, I think Celtic rounded off the year with the 2-4-0 wins at home, which made it that they didn't lose a single game at home in 2024, which is quite impressive. I think they only lost two across the whole year, and both of them coming away from home. And I think it was something like the least losses they've ever had in a calendar year or something like that. So it's a wee bit of a stat to show how well they've done this season. I think they've got 15 clean sheets in 18 league games, which is just ridiculous. And 52 goals scored, 4 conceded. Yeah, that's all you really need to say with this Celtic team. Nicholas Kuhn back amongst the goals after he's kind of not dip, but he didn't score for a while before the cup final. He scored obviously against Rangers. Then he got a goal, a deflected goal against Motherwell, and then he scored another against St Johnstone, taking him to 14 for the season, along with his 11 assists, which is just a ridiculous tally at this stage in the season. But Daisen Maeda also been brilliant in 2024. He's played 41 games, scored 21 goals. So more than a goal every other game for Maeda. It was pretty impressive with 3 Champions League and 3 Derby goals to go with that. But as you said, there's not really much to be said for Celtic. I think they'll just be looking to strengthen in January, make a push for the Champions League knockout stages. But yeah, there's not really much to be said. Celtic just kind of blowing away the competition at the moment.
Yeah, like when you say strengthen, Ethan, do you mean literally for like squad depth, or do you think there'll be like any more like starting quality players brought in?
Yeah, I think Celtic are in the sort of period where they're signing. They should be signing players to strengthen the starting 11. So it's difficult to strengthen the starting 11 because it's a good starting 11. It's a good squad. But I think there's definitely areas they could strengthen. Maybe not to the starting. As you said, the wingers have been probably two of Celtic's best players this season, Kuhn and Maeda. But I think some more players in that area as required with James Forrest injury, Lewis Palmer being not very good, and Yang kind of being hit or miss. And I think maybe Celtic could do with another striker as well, possibly, although they have got Johnny Kenny coming back from the League of Ireland. But I'm sure we'll get all into this in another maybe January transfer window video. But yeah, that's all I've got to say on Celtic, really. Just business as usual.
Yeah, I think that sums it up quite well, doesn't it? Business as usual. Gets a bit boring as someone who doesn't support either of the old firm, but I mean, business as usual is what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alex,
Mm-hmm.
you got anything to add?
No, probably not. I just think it's business as usual. Celtic have been really good. They maybe went through a little blip. The performances weren't what we're used to, but they still managed to get through that without a loss. So that's really, you can't ask any more of that. And they could be on track for an invincible season.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think maybe a last point is someone who's maybe earned a bit of criticism from Celtic fans, Arne Engels. Got back-to-back in Stadium Man of the Match awards, and he's got 12 goals and assists in 24 games this season, although most of them coming from the penalty spot, of course. But yeah, I think Celtic fans have been a bit harsh on him so far, but it'll be interesting to see how Brendan Rodgers lines up in that midfield, heading to Ibrox. I think it will be Engels, Hatate and McGregor, but Bernardo definitely has a case to start. And whether it'll go with Bailly or Taylor or Scales or Trusty, as Liam Scales seems to have taken back that left-sided roll back off Trusty after he came on in the cup final at half-time to positive effect. But yeah, I think we'll probably a wee bit blunt on that analysis, but there isn't much analysis to be done with this Celtic team. I think we'll move on to the next team, whoever that is.
So we'll talk about St Johnstone. I mentioned bottom of the table, lost 4-0 to Celtic at the weekend, and it's not looking good for Simo Valakari. Laurie, we thought maybe he was turning it around. He obviously delivered back-to-back wins for the first time in 2 years, I think it was. And then
That is crazy. That's a crazy start.
Yeah.
And then they've obviously dropped off tremendously.
Yeah, I think with Simo Valakari, he's really got to watch. We were talking earlier in the show about is it too early to be talking about Neil Critchley's future at Hearts? I personally don't think it's too early to talk about Valakari's. I think part of Timo Valakari's problem, and maybe some St Johnson fan would disagree on this, but maybe that's a controversial take. Some of Valakari's issues are probably because he's almost tried to be too cute and too pretty with the football and stuff sometimes. When you're in a relegation battle, it's about as boring and dull as this sounds, but keeping it tight and sometimes not playing exactly attractive football. Whereas, yes, they're playing better football under Valkyrie than they were under Craig Levein or Stephen McLean before that, or probably even Callum Davidson, or even Tommy Wright, which I can tell you is not pretty football. But the thing is, like, that's what gets teams like St Johnstone results. Yes, maybe St Johnstone are a bit easier on the eye and have a couple of shining lights, like Mackenzie Kirk, who of course is Andy Kirk, the assistant manager. It's his son, that doesn't matter, but he's been excellent. Of course, they've got quality with the likes of Kim Pioka and Sidibe, who kind of offer St Johnstone, that kind of dynamism and attack, and that's fine, but they're not really able to keep the back door shut. So you can't really go about playing pretty football when you can't keep it out at the other end.
Yeah, St Johnstone, the worst defence in the league, as you kind of referred to there, Laurie. I think a bit of the problem is trying to shoe all the attacking players into one team.
Yeah.
They've obviously got Mackenzie Kirk, who you would have to say is the kind of number one choice at the minute. I think he had four goals in 6 games going into the Celtic game. And then they've also got Nicky Clark, who's obviously a good experienced player. They've got Kimpioka, Sidibe, and Kimpioka's got a lot of goals this season. I think over 10 in all competitions, including the League Cup group stage. So it's difficult to get all them into a team. And as you mentioned, the sort of expansive football that Valakari's try to play, it doesn't always work. I think they were getting the ball down, trying to play at Celtic Park, which is just not really going to work for the players of St Johnstone's level. And they got punished, I think, on a few of the goals. It was on turnovers because St Johnstone were trying to play out from the back. And yeah, they've just got to be a wee bit more street smart because the gap between them and the kind of teams above them, the Hearts and the Ross County, isn't a large gap now, but they don't start picking up points, then it will become one. And I think it's no wins in the last 6, is it? Yeah, no wins in the last 6. The last one coming against Kilmarnock at home. But yeah, it's really that wins. I think only one win in the last 10. So it really has went a bit ugly after what we said was a good start for Valakari. I think he had 3 wins from 6, which is obviously really good. But since then, it's been nothing but losses pretty much, with an occasional win and draw. But yeah, it's worrying times for St Johnstone, and we'll see whether Valakari will revise his tactics or he'll be stubborn, much like who comes to mind, Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a stubborn type. I think he's the sort of guy who's like, this is how I play, and I don't really care what anyone else thinks. And in a way, I respect that, and that applies with Postecoglou as well. But I think Valkyrie really does need to be quite careful, and I always think he sounds. If you ever listen to the Simo Valkyrie post match, I always think he sounds a wee bit lost. As in, he doesn't quite know what's happened. And it seems
Yeah,
pretty obvious to everyone else. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
I think he's got a lot. From what I get from him, he's got a lot of belief in his players, and um, he's quite a likable character, I think, as well. So I hope
yeah,
St Johnstone can turn it around, but it's not looking good for them so far. And they do have a lot of attacking talent, but the rest of their squad isn't great. Um,
yeah. I think another thing, I've just looked at his sort of manager profile. He's came from Riga, was his last club, which they're obviously one of the best teams in Latvia. So he's probably going into games expecting to dominate the ball, play nice football, and that's just not going to happen at St Johnstone. It's not the
yeah,
same thing you're coming into.
just
And I think
better
he's going
teams
to
will run over the top of you.
yeah, exactly.
exactly.
And I don't really see. It's not really like you see St Johnstone moving in the right direction. Um, yeah, but as Laurie mentioned, Mackenzie Kirk is a really exciting player up through the youth setup. Sorry, but yeah, I think St Johnstone are going to struggle.
Definitely. We'll move on to Dundee and Ross County. Obviously, had a meeting on Boxing Day, which surprisingly ended in a 3-0 win for the Staggies. To me, anyway, that's kind of surprising. You don't really.
Well, I'm going to jump in. It's very surprising. I mean, it was Ross County's first away win in, I want to say it's like a year and a half. So it is
Yeah,
very surprising.
yeah, nearly 16 months since they won at Kilmarnock. It seems like every team's last win of some
Uh,
sort is
uh,
coming
uh,
at
uh,
Kilmarnock.
I
because
thought
it is.
Yeah,
I thought
I went to
Rangers' away record was bad. But what a way to shatter it. Obviously, Ross County are another one of these sides flirting with the drop. But I think, their enemy is inconsistency. Because I feel like one week that they do something like this, and then the next week they're garbage. So it is quite brief on Ross County for me, but I think they've got a good players there, and their manager is no mug either. So I think they should be all right for the rest of the season, and a really good win. Dundee are another one that's so weird, um,
yeah.
and they concede a lot, but they also score a lot. But I think we saw what happens when you don't score and you play with that style. And Tony Docherty's probably another stubborn one. Um, yeah, a bit like Ange, who will stick to his style. Sort of gung ho. We'll score more than you, and when they don't finish it off, that's what happens. But I think they're two teams that will probably be fine. Dundee have dropped off a little bit, but I think if they can put a good run of games together, they can be up challenging for top six. Ross County are one that I think won't be challenging for top six, but I don't think they'll be, um, right down there towards the end. I think they'll be down there for a while, but I don't think they'll be one of the clubs to be in the bottom two.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah, I
agree.
think I'd agree for the most part as well. I'll start on the Staggies, Ross County. I mean, there's a chance they'll be down there, but it feels like it's in their own hands. Ross County are actually very comparable to what Kilmarnock were a few seasons ago, like in what 22, 23. When Kelly's came back up into the Premiership, where we had a solid home record and were terrible away from home. And I mean, like, if I'm not mistaken, Ross County have only lost, I think, to Celtic, Rangers, and Aberdeen at home this season. And
Yeah.
that's what's keeping them above water. If they can keep up their excellent home form in Dingwall, because who likes going to Dingwall? I mean, it's a horrible place to go for an away
Yeah.
team. And obviously, if they can keep picking up even just points on the road, that should be enough to keep them up. And let's give Don Cowie a bit of credit, Alex. You said that he's no mug. When you bear in mind the kind of almost basket case of a club that he obviously even part of the furniture of Ross County for a while, but it was kind of a basket case when he got the reins managerially, because obviously Derek Adams, we all know what he thought of the standard of Scottish football. I would still back Ross County to beat Morecambe. Is he back in charge of Morecambe now, by the way? I think he might be again.
I think he is.
Yes.
I'm not
What a weird,
100% sure, but on
what a
Don
weird
Cowie,
guy.
yeah, I know. Just strange that criticizing a league that you're not good enough for. It is a strange way to go about things. But anyway, yeah, credit to Don Cowie for how he's created a decent squad at Ross County. Ross County are never going to be a team that's sort of up the top
Sorry, just
end.
quickly. Derek Adams is the manager of Morecambe, and they are rock bottom of League Two. 20 goals scored, 39 conceded. And they're a point behind Carlisle, but Carlisle have a game in hand on them.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
looks like it might be
Hashtag.
an Adams problem
Yeah.
Yeah.
rather than
And
a. Sorry, on you go,
yeah,
Laurie.
absolutely, it's definitely a Derek Adams problem. And Dundee, I think they'll be fine. I think what you say about maybe Tony Dock being a little bit stubborn is true. That's just he's one of these guys. That's the way it is. And again, I actually quite enjoy, unless it's against my team because we're sick playing them. I enjoy watching Tony Docherty Dundee because they can be
Sorry.
quite okay, they can be quite entertaining in that sense. Like it's always quite they're always a fun watch, but they will stay up. They'll probably be kind of I don't know seventh, eighth, kind of somewhere in that ballpark. I don't think anyone was expecting last season. Tony Docherty's first season in management, then a top six finish for newly promoted Dundee. I think that took everyone by surprise.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying about Dundee. Are usually an entertaining team to watch. You just look at some of the games against Kilmarnock this season, um, just absolute shootouts. But yeah, I think Dundee, as you said, I think they're not as good as last season. I think they will miss out on top six, but I think they'll be absolutely fine in terms of any relegation talk. Obviously, they've lost their captain and their best player, Luke McCowan, and they might lose Lyle Cameron as well. I think he's been linked to numerous clubs. But yeah, for what I was saying about Ross County and Don Cowie, I think he's got a good squad of players there. Josh Nisbet looks like a really decent player. I know he didn't start against Dundee. I don't know if he started against Hearts. Let me check. Yes, he did. He obviously scored in both games. No Chilvers. I think I had him my worst team of the season so far. He looked brilliant against Dundee, as did the whole Ross County team. They absolutely dominated them. I think it was their first win in 25 league games, which is quite 25 away league games. Sorry, which is
Right.
quite a crazy start. And then they go and pull off the miraculous comeback at home to Hearts, 97th and 99th minute goals. Yeah, so I think they'll be fine, Ross County. I think you're looking at St Johnstone and Hearts at the moment. I know it's easy to say because they're the bottom two teams, but they really would concern me as a supporter. But yeah, I think Ross County and Dundee will have okay seasons.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember.
I'd definitely agree with that. Unless we've missed anyone, do you want to wrap it up there? Obviously,
Yep.
it's a big week coming up. The Old Firm, obviously, not as much riding on it in points, but it's it's always a fiery game. We'll be back to talk about that. Go check out our Twitter at the Dugout 2024. Thank you to everyone for watching and listening. We hope you have a happy new year. Goodbye.